Before we go any further, viewer discretion is advised. What you're about to witness is crafted purely for entertainment, a heightened, dramatic glimpse into a fictional world where emotions hit harder, tensions run deeper, and live television becomes a battleground of personalities. Nothing here claims to depict real events. Instead, it leans into the theatrical side of what, if storytelling, inviting the audience to imagine how quickly a calm moment can turn into a storm. The scene opens inside a studio famous for transforming casual conversations into explosive headlines. It is a place where whispers morph into wildfire, where a single raised eyebrow can unsettle an entire room, and where the unexpected is practically guaranteed. As the cameras begin to warm up and the technical crew rushes through their final checks, a subtle shift runs through the air, an atmospheric tightening, the kind that hints that something significant is about to unfold. Audience members shuffle into their seats, their voices a mixture of soft chatter, laughter, and curious predictions about what today's episode might bring. The brightly lit stage gleams beneath an array of overhead lights, each one sharpening the view like a spotlight on a theater set. Everything about the moment feels intensified. The buzz of studio machinery, usually just another piece of background noise, falls into a synchronized hum, almost as if the building itself is holding its breath. Then he appears, Bryan, known for his warm southern charm and easygoing presence. He steps onto the stage with a stride that feels familiar to anyone who's watched him perform or speak in public. Yet today, despite his casual confidence, there is something noticeably different about him. A weight, invisible but undeniable, clings to his steps. It's not fear, not hesitation, but more like the steadiness of a man who knows he's walking into a space charged with sparks. Across from him sits Behar, poised at the host's table with practiced composure. Her smile is collected, precise, the kind of smile that looks warm at first glance but carries undercurrents of curiosity, and perhaps just a hint of mischief. She has built her reputation on sharp questions and even sharper instincts, and today, as she watches Luke settle into the chair beside her, her expression suggests she's already working several moves ahead. There's no aggression yet, no outright challenge, but rather a subtle, silent acknowledgement that the conversation is about to push boundaries. As Luke takes his seat, the atmosphere seems to thicken. Conversations in the audience flicker out. The last clacks of equipment fall silent. Even the shifting of people in their chairs slows, as though everyone present collectively senses that something important, and possibly volatile, is about to begin. The anticipation rolls through the studio like a distant tremor. At first it's faint, a barely noticeable ripple, but with each passing second it gathers strength, stretching across the room until it becomes impossible to ignore. Joy's eyes narrow ever so slightly, a glint of playful challenge igniting behind them. She leans forward, not aggressively, not threateningly, but with the deliberate engagement of someone who knows how to control a moment. Luke, meanwhile, sits with a posture that speaks volumes. His jaw tightens almost imperceptibly, the kind of tension that signals quiet resolve rather than defensiveness. He isn't walking blindly into this interview. He has come prepared, grounded, and ready for whatever curveball might be thrown his way. Then it happens. The first question. On the surface, it's gentle, harmless, almost conversational. But underneath, hidden in its phrasing, there is a pointed edge, a subtle challenge wrapped in a velvet tone. It slices through the air like a blade disguised as a feather. The audience hears it. The crew hears it. Luke most definitely hears it. He doesn't rush to answer. Instead, he pauses, allowing the silence to stretch in a way that commands attention. It's not awkward or hesitant. It's controlled, intentional, a silence that invites curiosity, tension, and 100 unspoken questions. Every heartbeat in the room seems to sync with this pause, creating a collective stillness that is rarely achieved on live television. During that suspended moment, something flickers behind Luke's eyes. It's subtle but unmistakable, a shift, a spark, a glimpse of the resolve he walked in with. It's the kind of moment that doesn't need words to announce itself. The audience doesn't know what it means yet, but they can feel it, the way one senses an approaching storm long before the first rumble of thunder. The cameras zoom in just slightly, capturing the tiniest micro-expressions. A tightening of Luke's brow, a barely, their smirk from joy, a flicker of tension in the hands resting on the table. Everything becomes heightened, magnified by the pressure of the silence. The entire studio feels poised at the edge of something unpredictable, something electric. It's in this precise instant, this thin slice of time between question and answer, that the entire atmosphere transforms. The audience leans closer. The crew shifts with quiet urgency. The host waits with expectation shimmering in her eyes. Luke draws a breath, slow and deliberate, as though measuring not just his words, but the weight they will carry once spoken. The collision hasn't happened yet, but the world around them already feels changed. The stage is set, the energy is charged, and in the space between two people, one ready to push, the other ready to stand his ground, an entire studio hangs suspended on the edge of what comes next. Something moves through the room, something invisible yet powerful enough to send a collective shiver down the spine of the entire studio. It isn't loud, it isn't dramatic, but it washes over everyone with the unmistakable sensation that the air itself has changed. Behind one of the main cameras, a producer inhales sharply, as though he's just witnessed the first spark of an oncoming explosion. Nearby, a stagehand freezes mid-step, one foot suspended just above the floor, eyes widening as he senses the tension tightening around him like a drawn bowstring. No one knows what Luke Bryan is about to say. Not the crew, not the hosts, not even the people who scripted the flow of today's show. But everyone feels it, the moment the fuse catches fire, because this moment isn't rehearsed. This moment isn't polished or pre-written. This moment isn't safe. It is raw. It is real. It is the first crack in what will soon erupt into a full, blown Hollywood shockwave. And somewhere inside that breathless quiet, inside that thin, trembling space between Luke's inhale and his first word, something dangerous begins to bloom, the promise of an explosive line. A line that will land not beside Joy Behar, not around her, but squarely on her, carrying the weight of every unspoken tension that's pulsed beneath their interactions since the moment he stepped on stage. But what the audience doesn't know is that storms rarely start on camera. The lightning doesn't strike when the red recording light turns on. No, the real beginning happens earlier, in shadows and corners, in whispers and glances, in the moments people never see. It starts long before the audience files into their seats, buzzing with excitement and unaware of the electrified undercurrent running through the building, long before the studio lights blaze to life, washing the stage in a harsh, brilliant glow. Long before anyone realizes they are about to witness a moment that will rattle the walls of daytime television and echo through gossip circuits for months. Backstage, tucked behind layers of curtains, equipment, and quiet urgency, the energy hums with a tension that feels strangely alive. It vibrates through the narrow hallways, charged and restless, like the air just before lightning splits open a summer sky. People speak in lower voices. Crew members move faster than usual. Assistants hover near doorways with clipboards clutched tightly, stealing glances that say more than words ever could. And then, Luke Bryan arrives, earlier than expected, earlier than scheduled, earlier than anyone was prepared to see him. He steps into the dim corridor that runs like a spine through the building. The overhead bulbs flicker slightly, illuminating his figure in a wash of golden shadows. He offers a polite nod to a passing crew member, the corner of his mouth lifting in a half-smile. But it's not the easy, wide smile fans know so well. It's smaller, tighter, a smile that doesn't quite reach his eyes. His boots strike the polished studio floor, each step resonating through the quiet like a slow, steady drumbeat. Every movement is controlled, measured. There is no rush to him, no hesitation either, just the calm, deliberate pace of a man stepping into something he can feel before he fully understands. Yet beneath that calm exterior, beneath the carefully composed expression, the thoughtful posture, the laid back country, star charm, something else churns, something Luke doesn't show on camera, something the audience never sees. A mix of curiosity and caution, a flicker of irritation, and the quiet readiness of a man who has learned the hard way how quickly a simple conversation can transform into a battlefield. He can feel the energy in the building. He can sense it in the way assistants whisper his name, in the way camera operators look up as he passes, in the way producers exchange meaningful glances, Something is brewing, something bigger than the usual morning show chatter, something heavier than a harmless celebrity interview. Luke doesn't know exactly what he's walking into, but every instinct in his body is alert, stretched tight like an arrow waiting to be released. As he moves deeper into the hallway, he passes a monitor showing the live audience settling into their seats. People chat excitedly and scan the stage as though preparing for a spectacle they don't even realize they're about to witness. Luke watches for a moment, his reflection faintly visible in the screen. It's the face of a man who has been in the spotlight enough to recognize when a room is preparing for trouble, and today, trouble is waiting for him. He continues toward the dressing room, greeted by a flurry of makeup artists, assistants, and hairstylists. They circle him like a whirlwind, smoothing, brushing, adjusting. But even they, who have worked in this chaotic backstage world for years, seem unusually tense. Their laughter rings too high. Their words are clipped, rushed. They keep glancing toward the studio doors as if expecting something, or someone, to burst through. Luke senses it all. He says little, observing more than he speaks. He feels the pressure building not just around him, but inside him. A strength coils in his chest, calm but fierce, quiet but unwavering. He knows this interview has the potential to go wrong. He knows Joy Behar is sharp, quick, and fearless. But he also knows himself. He knows his boundaries, his limits, and the lines he won't let anyone cross. By the time he's called to the stage, the tension has grown into something alive, something crackling and unpredictable. He steps forward, takes a deep breath, and pushes through the final curtain, and the moment he appears under the bright studio lights, the storm begins. He adjusts his jacket with a slow, steady motion, the kind a man uses not out of nervousness, but out of discipline. He exhales, letting the faint murmur of producers, camera operators, makeup artists, and floor managers wash over him like distant ocean waves. Luke Bryan has been here before, on stages in front of tens of thousands, in interview chairs where questions were loaded like gun chambers, on late night shows where tension hid beneath a layer of polite smiles. He has faced screaming fans, critics looking for cracks, and headlines waiting to misinterpret a single misplaced syllable. But today feels different. There is something in the air, a whisper, a warning, a quiet pulse telling him to stay sharp. He can't explain it. He doesn't need to. The instinct is enough. Across the hall, Joy Behar sits in her dressing room. The door is slightly ajar, just enough for a sliver of warm light to spill into the hallway. The glow of the mirror lights reflects off her focused expression. She is a veteran of this whirl, experienced, strategic, accustomed to shaping conversations and stirring reactions. She flips through her note cards with a practiced rhythm, each tap against the desk, forming a quiet percussion of preparation. Her eyes narrow each time she pauses on one specific card, a question wrapped in controversy. A question she knows could detonate the moment she releases it. A question she chose on purpose. She taps the edge of the card again and again, not nervously, not hesitantly, but with anticipation. Joy is calculating. She knows her audience expects sharp edges, bold prods, and pointed truths, and she has every intention of delivering exactly that. Yet even she cannot fully ignore the unusual heaviness in the air, an invisible pressure sitting on her shoulders like a warning she refuses to acknowledge. In the control room, producers whisper in tight, cautious tones. Their eyes dart across the monitors, following the feed like pilots scanning their instruments during turbulence. Each screen shows a different angle. Luke in the hallway, Joy in makeup, the audience finding their seats, the stage glowing under the pre-show lights. Every producer knows the stakes. They know Joy's style, bold, fearless, and sometimes unpredictable. They know Luke's reputation, charming but not one to be cornered. And they know this combination on a live show has the potential to veer off course faster than anyone can intervene. One producer runs a hand through his hair, exhaling like he's trying to slow his racing thoughts. Another bites her lip, glancing at the clock as though it's a countdown to something inevitable. A third taps his pen against the desk, trying to keep his nerves from showing. Still, no one says anything out loud. Not when the cameras are minutes from rolling. Not when stepping in could worsen the tension. Not when warning either Joy or Luke might ignite the exact explosion they're desperate to avoid. Meanwhile, on the other side of the curtains, The audience trickles in with cheerful, oblivious chatter. They settle into their seats, laugh, snap selfies, wave at the studio cameras, and discuss which topics might spark debate today. They see none of the tension backstage. They hear none of the anxious whispers behind the control room glass. They don't notice the stage manager pacing just a bit faster than usual, or the lighting crew double, checking equipment that has never failed before. All they know is that a show is about to begin. And they have no idea that they're about to witness a moment sharp enough to slice straight through the polished surface of daytime television. Luke stands near the entrance to the stage, rolling his shoulders, loosening the tension knotted beneath his skin. He shakes out the remnants of hesitation and locks onto the task ahead. His gaze drifts toward the hallway just as Joy steps out of her dressing room, the calm confidence she wears like armor radiating from her with every step. For one fleeting second their eyes meet. It's barely a moment shorter than a breath, quicker than a blink, but something crackles between them, something electric, something volatile. It's not hostility. Not exactly, but it's the unmistakable tension of two people who know they're heading into a conversation that won't remain polite for long. It's the silent recognition that a line will be crossed today, by one of them, or maybe both. The stage manager's voice cuts through the air, louder and tighter than usual. "We're going live in 2 minutes." Luke nods, his expression steady, though there's a flicker of intensity in his eyes now. Joy smiles, calm, rehearsed, and razor-sharp. The crew stiffens, each person bracing without meaning to. The audience erupts in cheerful applause, unaware of the tremor rippling backstage. No one, absolutely no one, knows what's coming. No one knows how quickly the atmosphere will flip the moment the questions begin. No one knows that the real storm is seconds away, and when the cameras blink red, the world will feel the impact. No one realizes they're standing on the edge of a moment powerful enough to erupt with a force that will echo across Hollywood for weeks, maybe months, but the storm knows. Whatever is coming has already begun to take shape, already started swelling beneath the surface, already threading itself silently through the walls of the studio. It waits like a predator hidden in tall grass, silent, patient, ready. Only a spark is needed, one question, one misstep, one breath taken at the wrong moment, and then everything will break. The conversation begins almost too gently, like the delicate surface of a still lake, concealing a violent current swirling underneath. The studio lights cast a warm, inviting glow across the set. The audience leans forward, relaxed, smiling, unaware of the fine tremor skimming just under the floor beneath their feet. They think they're here for entertainment. They don't realize they are about to witness the beginning of a televised earthquake. Luke Bryan settles into his chair with smooth, effortless charm, a familiar southern ease that instantly earns him a round of applause. He flashes a small, polite grin, nodding in acknowledgement, making the room soften. He has this effect. His presence calms, it disarms, it draws people in without him even trying. Joy Behar greets him with a brightness that feels almost too perfect, too polished. Her tone is honeyed, warm, but beneath that sweetness lies something sharper, an invisible blade hidden behind a velvet smile. She plays it well, too well, like someone who's practiced the balance between friendliness and provocation for decades. For a moment, the entire scene feels harmless, nearly cozy. Two public figures exchanging pleasantries, as if they were chatting in the corner of a quiet cafe, instead of under the unforgiving spotlight of live television. The illusion is so convincing that even the camera operators soften for a second, but then Joy lifts her first card, her fingers hesitate, a fraction of a second, barely noticeable, but Luke sees it. He tracks the movement with the slow, steady attention of a man who has spent his entire career reading crowds, sensing shifts, anticipating storms long before they arrive. The smile on Joy's face widens, but something essential disappears from it. The warmth drains, what's left is a mask, pretty, poised, and armed. She leans forward, her posture meticulous, her breath controlled, as she prepares to deliver the question she selected with precision. And then she does. Her voice is soft, too soft, misleadingly gentle, a still, cracked spark, the kind of quiet that carries danger inside it. The moment the words leave her mouth, the entire atmosphere changes. Not violently, not loudly, but sharply, Like stepping from warm sunlight into an unexpected chill that climbs up your spine. It's a small shift, but undeniable, the kind of shift that signals something has slipped, something has fallen out of place, something irreversible has just begun. Luke hears it instantly. The audience feels it too, though they aren't sure why. Their smiles falter, some blink, some straighten. The applause dies faster than usual, replaced by a quiet that feels a touch too heavy. Behind the cameras, the crew reacts almost in unison. A sound operator stiffens. A stage manager's eyebrows pinch together. A camera operator leans in slightly, as though instinctively bracing for what might follow. Their faces don't fully register panic, but anticipation. Tight, wary anticipation. Luke lets the question land. One heartbeat passes, then another. His silence stretches, not long enough to appear hesitant, but long enough to thicken the air. He isn't stalling. He's calculating, choosing, reading. The studio holds its breath. Even Joy watches closely, waiting for the slightest crack, the smallest reaction she can press on. Luke doesn't give her one. Instead, his jaw shifts, a small movement, a subtle tightening, then release. The kind of tell only someone deeply familiar with him would catch. His fingers rest loosely against the arm of his chair, but the calmness in his posture is layered, armored. His shoulders don't tense, his eyes remain steady, but the air around him seems to sharpen. Something flickers behind his gaze, measured, controlled, unmistakably aware. He's not blindsided, he's not thrown. He's weighing the gravity of Joy's opening move, calculating the distance between where the interview is supposed to go and where it clearly intends to go instead. The audience senses the silent battle beginning. They shift in their seats, still unsure of the tension but unable to ignore it. A few lean forward, a few glance at each other. Something is happening. They can feel it. Joy studies Luke with polite interest, but inside her eyes there's a spark, a glimmer of challenge, of provocation, of satisfaction that her first strike has landed exactly where she intended. She doesn't press yet. Not immediately. She waits, giving Luke the space to step onto the ground she has chosen. Luke inhales slowly, a quiet breath, controlled, deliberate. When he finally moves his gaze back to Joy, there's a shift in his expression. Not a smile, not anger, but a steady composure that feels stronger, heavier, more grounded than before. The calm before a counter-strike. And in that moment, without a single raised voice or harsh word, the entire studio feels the shift. The storm has arrived, quietly, precisely, inevitably, and it's only just beginning. The shift in Luke's expression is subtle, so subtle that most people watching at home would miss it completely. But in the studio, where every breath feels amplified, it lands with the weight of a quiet warning. His words remain calm, his tone even, but underneath that smooth delivery is a boundary he does not intend to let anyone cross. It isn't aggression, not even defensiveness. It's the unmistakable steadiness of someone who knows exactly who he is and refuses to be nudged off center. Joy notices it, of course she does. She tilts her head, studying him the way a seasoned host studies a guest she knows has more going on beneath the surface than he lets on. Her eyes flicker over him, his posture, the angle of his shoulders, how he sits grounded in the chair with the kind of balance that only years of performing on loud stages can teach. Her smile stretches just a touch wider, a silent acknowledgement that she has found something interesting, something to poke at. The audience remains blissfully unaware of the razor-thin line tightening between the two of them. They laugh at the easy jokes, at the playful tone of her questions, but something new begins to stir in the room. It ripples from the stage to the cameras and out toward the wings, subtle enough to hide beneath the chatter, but strong enough to raise the hair on the arms of anyone paying close attention. The air has thickened, not dangerously, not overtly, but unmistakably. Luke shifts slightly in his seat. It's not a big movement, nothing dramatic or defensive. It's the adjustment of a man grounding himself, silently reminding his body of where he stands. His hands rest calmly on his lap, but his fingers curl inward by the smallest degree, as though gathering a spark of focus. He isn't tense, not even uneasy. He's simply present in a way that wasn't there a moment before, more aware, more alert, more deliberate. Joy picks up on it and moves into her next question with deliberate pacing. Her voice dips into that familiar register, a mixture of humor and challenge that has made her famous. She doesn't attack, not outright, but she circles back to his earlier answer with surgical precision, nudging him, testing him, adjusting her approach like someone tapping along the edges of a locked door in search of a weak latch. The audience chuckles again, oblivious to the subtle chess match unfolding in front of them. Each laugh brings them closer to the flame without them even realizing it. They think they're watching banter. They don't know they're watching a quiet collision of wills. Luke studies her with sharpened eyes. His expression stays friendly enough for television, but deep inside, something flickers. It's quick, almost too quick to catch, like a spark revealing where the firewood is driest. Then he leans in barely, but unmistakably, meeting her with a tone that suddenly carries more weight. His voice remains warm, controlled, but there's a new undertone now, one that says he's fully aware of the direction she's trying to steer the conversation. He doesn't dodge, he doesn't soften, and he certainly doesn't retreat. He meets her exactly where she is. The temperature in the room rises by a degree, more, but enough that everyone notices it, even if they can't explain why. The energy shifts, slow as a tide but strong as a warning. A whisper seems to travel through the studio, a message from one moment to the next. Be careful where this goes. One of the producers behind the main camera inhales sharply, as if sensing the turning of a wheel they didn't expect. A stagehand in the corner freezes mid-step, instinctively holding still, like movement might accidentally tip the balance. Joy's smile twitches, just a tiny break in her composure. It's barely visible, but for someone like her, whose entire career revolves around micro-expressions and conversational control, it's telling. She felt the spark. She knows the dynamic has shifted, and for the briefest moment, she seems to calculate whether she wants to push further or pull back. Luke holds her gaze. He lets the silence stretch, not dramatically, not with hostility, but with intention. It extends for a heartbeat longer than anyone expects, landing heavy in the center of the studio, like a slow, rolling drumbeat. It isn't threatening, it's grounding, a reminder that he is not someone to be steered without his consent. Then, with the same easy grace he brings to a stage, he leans back. His shoulders loosen, his expression softens, and the tension eases just enough for the audience to exhale without realizing they were holding their breath. He flashes that warm, familiar grin, the kind that fills stadiums and makes people feel like they're old friends. The crowd responds instantly, a wave of applause rising like a tide, washing away the edge of the moment. The conversation rolls on, but with a softness that feels almost deceptive, as though both hosts and guest have silently agreed to tread carefully for now. Yet beneath the smiles and laughter, a quiet truth lingers. Everyone in the room felt the shift, even if they don't talk about it. Something unspoken passed between them, a signal, a boundary, a promise that the conversation might return to that line again if either of them dares to push.